everyone's talking about Delano Banton's blowing up, and people are talking about how great OG Anunoby's doing, and people are talking about how great Pascal Siakam's doing. Guess what? All these guys started the season out with Darko Rajakovic. You got these guys who are all growing, but I'm seeing like very similar overlaps where they're better finishers, better decision makers. How is it that all of them got better at all the same shit? Everyone got better. Scottie got better. Grady got better. I think he really understands how to think. And so he has this excellent way of communicating and building trust with players. And Darko has clearly connected people on the fair value of joy for the game, love of the game, development, getting better, pursuing meaning, and, playing for each other. And the team is taking on that identity because he is the strongest voice in the room right now. When I was playing the 2K game, what's interesting is I download all the draft classes, but then I have to make them realistic because most draft classes that you download are hyper unrealistic. Like everyone has potential 94 or 92 or whatever. I'm like, fuck this shit. So I started drawing out the potential, and I really like how NBA 2K24 has done this, where they give you max potential, minimum potential. What is the likelihood that this player will actually succeed? And I think this is actually very close to how real potential actually works. I think you have a development staff in place where if there's even a 4% or 3% chance with a prospect, they'll probably get it out of them. And that's what makes me so excited about this. There are 3 young players at minimum who are going to enter the Raptors system this summer. That's 4 players that come into Summer League. That's 4 players that Darko is going to work with. That's 4 players that are going to come into this completely new culture where like everyone is selfless. And you got Kelly Olynyk and Jakob Poeltl teaching you how to be a pro. And hopefully you have Garrett Temple back. And you have Scottie Barnes and Emmanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett telling you how to run the ropes. This channel is called Pensare Basketball, which means thinking about basketball. And I feel like sometimes we don't live up to the billing. Let me try. Do you know that there's this old saying that 1 minute spent planning saves you 10 minutes doing? This element of infrastructure is so lost on people because people are so bad at planning. People are so bad at setting things up properly, mapping things out. We are in the age of instant gratification, which means if I can't see it right now, it doesn't exist. And when I see it, I'll believe it. There's a lot of groupthink. There's a lot of, influence because of social media that our thoughts are being constantly contaminated by other people's ideas about things. The Raptors have officially, within 9 months of hiring a new coaching staff, completely reset the culture of this team. The culture of this team determines not only the success of this team, it determines the problem-solving capabilities of this team. It determines the late-game composure of this team. It determines how this team responds to adversity, trades, rumors, free agency. It will influence young players coming to this team and what they absorb about what it means to be a professional basketball player. All of these things are lost, I feel, on the casual fan, who just sees it as players being drafted, players being busts, players not being busts. If I put a $5 million seed in rotten soil, it will turn into nothing. We just assume guys fail in a vacuum. We just assume, Kwame Brown just fucking failed. What was there in Washington? What infrastructure was there for him? Was it a good environment for him to go into? Eddie Curry, the Baby Bulls, who taught him how to be a pro? Who was his vet? I think sometimes a terrible thing can motivate tremendous growth if you learn from it properly. But see, the terrible thing is only a terrible thing until you make something of it that's good. And I think the Raptors have taken the lessons of the previous 2 years and they bottled it up into something great. We often think about things with the ending in mind when we tell it back. We don't talk about Jordan's failures as much as we talk about the 6 championships. But in the moment when he was losing to the Pistons, all we talked about was the failures, and there was no championship in sight, and he was never going to win. And a scoring champion can never be an NBA champion. But now it's so obvious that he was always going to win 6 and always going to become the GOAT. And it wasn't obvious. And a lot of people were like, you'll never win a championship with this guy. He's too selfish. All those failures just are part of something. This failure, what's happening right now for the Toronto Raptors, it's going to come around, and by next year we're going to look at this 17-game losing streak, 15-game losing streak, or whatever the hell it is going to be, and we're going to look at this and we're going to say, this is what builds character, because it hasn't defined this team. You know, losing is such a toxic thing for the team because you start to identify as a losing team. But I think this coaching staff and this management team has done such an excellent job of managing expectations and managing communication within this team that none of this losing is actually even like starting to bother these players.